Hello everyone. For today's class, we'll be deploying a Docker application with Pipeops. We would have a Docker application written in TypeScript, and we'll be deploying this using Pipeops in a few steps. Now, first we'll have our Pipeops page. We have our project, we have our default servers that was provisioned to us when we created the application. By default, there's dev, and if you're a startup. Now, this is the application we'll be deploying, Pipeops TypeScript Docker. It is a public application on my repo. You can always go to clone and install. So the application contains its Docker file, docker.yaml file. The Docker compose file, which we'll not be using though, just the Docker file. We also have the source code in the SRC folder, which is a simple server.ts file that shows and returns a simple hello v3 and status OK. We also have our Docker file, which is multi-build, multi-stage. The first stage is the build stage, where it builds from TypeScript into our desired artifact, which is JavaScript. Creates the app folder, package as JSON, does the npm install, then does npm install build. So this handles our build stage. Then we also have the second stage, which I call the deploy stage here. It does the same thing, creates a work directory, copies the package files, then installs only production dependencies. That's how I have npm install omit dev. So he omits all dependencies for development and installs only production. Then copies our artifact from dist in the builder image or builder container to dist in our deployment container. We also have our port exposed on port 8. We also have a container exposing on port 8000 and our command to start the container on npm run start, as we have in our package.json file. So you can always clone this repo and use as a test repo. So next we go to our Pipeops dashboard, where you have our deploy a new project button. So when you click, you select web project. You can have multiple sources. You can have a repo, you can have a Docker Hub image, you have a database. For this project, we'll be working with our linked repo. So we connect a repo source. In this case, I've already connected my GitHub repo, so I would select that. You can always create your own repo sources using the connection link. So I select my GitHub repo and I select my organization, which is my name. Then I'll have a list of all my repos. Then I select the one I want to work with, which is the Pipeops TypeScript Docker repo. When I select that, it shows me my branches, and I select the branch I want to work with. In this case, main branch, which is my only branch because this is just a test project. Then I select proceed. So it creates the project name, creates the environment, my test server in EU West 2. It also shows the project source, which you can edit at any point, and also our project repo, which you can also edit at any point. Then we'll click proceed. Now our build settings is Docker, which is recommended. Why? Because we already have a Docker file in our repo. There are also other sources or other build methods depending on what your project is. Node, Heroku, Bacto, and Node for static frontend. But we're going with Docker. Also, if we have our Docker file in a folder that is not the root directory, then we can specify which particular folder it is from here. But because mine is in the root directory, I do not need to make any other edits or put any path. to that Docker path section. I also have my port, which is the port my container is exposing, port 8000. Once I have that in place, host is 0.0.0.0, then I click on deploy project. At the bottom here, we'll see the build logs for our deployment. So it is running the Docker file, both the build stage and the deployment. So we'll have our application successfully built. So in a few moments, it should give us the URL to view the application we have in our Docker container. Yep, so we'll have it there, got it. So in a few seconds, we'll be able to preview our application. This is your Pipeops project dashboard, shows you a summary overview of your resource usage, app status, recent activity. Your history shows you the history of deployments, whether successful or failed. Since we have just one deployment, we have just that. The observability dashboard gives us an overview of our project metrics for memory usage, CPU usage, and the rest of that. If there are any logs probably from our application, then we would have them here. But from our application, there was no log configured. Events shows all events that happened for this particular project, including deployments, initiation, successful deployments. Then the terminal shows, this terminal is for the container that is currently running. Yeah, this is an exec into the running container. If you put on ls, it gives a list of all files and folders inside the app directory, which we use as our work directory. So you have our dist folder, which contains my build files. After building, it created that folder with all the files that my application actually need in JavaScript, because the container would not run TypeScript. Also have the node modules package.lock.json and also package.json. Then settings shows other settings, build settings, source control, and the rest. So if we click on build view project, it shows us our running projects. And as we have it here, returning message hello version 3 status okay. So we have our Docker container, which was written in TypeScript, successfully running on Pipeops in a few easy steps. So this is the return statement that we were expecting. So our container has run, our image has been deployed successfully in a container, and it is running.